If you are sitting at a computer right now, I want you to take a quick glance up at the top right corner of your web browser. Just, look up there for a second.
You probably got a bunch of them up there.
Yeah, exactly. A handful of little icons sitting there. Maybe, I don't know, a little red stop sign for your ad blocker or a key icon for your password manager.
Right, or maybe like a grammar checker.
Yeah, exactly. We customize our browsers to make our digital lives easier, and we usually assume those little tools operate entirely privately, like acting as a bridge between us and our own computers.
That's the assumption, yeah.
But have you ever stopped to wonder if the websites you visit are looking back at those icons? Like, do you know exactly who is watching you use them?
It's a scary thought.
It really is. So today, we are unpacking a massive legal showdown against LinkedIn that is, well, it's really blurring the line between necessary website security and covert user surveillance.
It is a profound shift in how we need to think about the internet, really. I mean, we still tend to treat our web browser like it is our private vehicle driving on the public highway of the web.
Right.
We just assume no one is, looking through the windows to see what kind of dashboard accessories we have installed.
Yeah, totally.
But modern websites are no longer just static digital brochures. They're complex two-way software applications that actively monitor the environment they're loaded into. And that reality is at the heart of two major class action lawsuits recently filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California against LinkedIn.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the technical mechanics here are just as vital as the courtroom drama.
Absolutely.
Before we can even, evaluate the merits of these lawsuits, we have to establish the actual technical action at the center of the controversy.
Right, what are they actually doing?
Exactly. And LinkedIn actually acknowledges the underlying behavior here. They admit to scanning Google Chrome and Chromium-based browsers, which, by the way, includes Microsoft Edge, to identify which extensions a user has installed.
They do, yeah.
And my immediate thought when reading this was, wait, how does a website sitting on a server somewhere scan the hard drive of my local machine to see what software I'm running?
Let me stop you right there, because that is the most common misconception. And it is a crucial technical distinction for these lawsuits.
Okay, so they aren't looking at my hard drive.
No, LinkedIn is absolutely not scanning your hard drive or your personal computer's file system. That would be a massive, undeniable breach of security protocols.
So what are they doing then?
What they are actually doing is looking at the reflection of the extension on the web page itself, using something called the Document Object Model, or the DOM.
So instead of looking at my computer, they're just looking at the page they sent to my computer.
Exactly. Think of the DOM as the structural blueprint of the web page currently open on your screen.
Okay, a blueprint. Got it.
Right. So when you install an extension and that extension needs to interact with a website, it often has to inject its own code directly into that blueprint to make it function.
Oh, like images or something.
Yeah, things like images, CSS, or JavaScript. For example, if you use a dark mode extension, it injects code to change the colors of the LinkedIn page rendering on your screen.
That makes sense.
These injected pieces of code are known as static resources. So LinkedIn systems are constantly scanning their own web page's blueprint, looking for those specific injected resources to identify which extension left them there.
Wow. Okay. That completely reframes the technical reality. They're just taking inventory of the structural changes made to their own house.
Exactly. It's their house, their blueprint.
Right. And LinkedIn's defense for doing this relies entirely on the concept of platform integrity.
Yeah, they argue they're doing this to ensure site stability.
And more importantly, to protect their members from malicious extensions, right? Specifically, they want to identify automated tools designed to extract or scrape member data from the platform without authorization.
Which is, a very real existential threat to a company like LinkedIn.
Oh, for sure.
Their entire business model, whether it is Recruiter or Sales Navigator, is based on selling premium access to professional data.
Right. Data is their product.
Exactly. So if an extension allows a user to automatically scrape thousands of profiles for free, that bypasses LinkedIn's monetization. And it degrades the privacy of the members whose data is being hoovered up.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
So LinkedIn argues this scanning is a necessary defense mechanism to spot the scraping tools in action.
So legally, LinkedIn is basically arguing they're just a bouncer at a club, right?
Yeah.
Checking IDs at the door to make sure bad actors aren't entering.
Yeah, that's their stance.
But the plaintiffs in these lawsuits are arguing this bouncer is taking things a step further, like actively logging the brands of the clothes we are wearing under our coats to build a detailed profile on us.
That analogy gets right to the heart of the modern privacy debate. It really does. It is a question of intent versus capability.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning, the mechanism LinkedIn uses to spot a malicious scraping tool is the exact same mechanism that can be used to spot a totally benign accessibility tool.
Oh, I see.
The technical capability is neutral, right? But the intent behind cataloging that data is what the legal system is currently trying to parse.
And if LinkedIn claims this is just standard, run-of-the-mill security, why are there two massive class action lawsuits happening right now?
Well, that's the big question.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we have to look at the source of these allegations. The lawsuits rely heavily on a highly publicized report dubbed Browsergate.
Right, Browsergate.
But this report wasn't published by some, independent, neutral academic watchdog. It was published by a German trade association called Fairlinked.
And Fairlinked has some very specific ties.
Yeah, they are tied directly to the exact same people running an Estonian software company named Teamfluence.
And if you look into Teamfluence, you find they sell a product they literally call a LinkedIn radar extension.
Wait, really? A radar extension?
Yeah, it's a tool designed to automatically collect information about user interactions directly from the LinkedIn website.
Which is the literal definition of the automated data scraping that LinkedIn's security bouncer is designed to stop.
Exactly. It's a scraper.
And LinkedIn actually caught Teamfluence doing this, right?
Yeah.
And suspended their accounts for violating the user agreement.
They did, yeah. They banned them.
But Teamfluence didn't just accept the ban. Back in January, they sued LinkedIn in Munich over it.
They did. And the outcome of that German lawsuit provides vital context for what we are seeing unfold in California today.
Right, because Teamfluence categorically lost in Munich. The German judge ruled that Teamfluence's radar tool was violating data protection laws.
And that LinkedIn was well within its rights to protect its platform and enforce its terms of service against unauthorized extraction.
Makes sense. So Sarah Wright, LinkedIn's vice president and legal counsel, has aggressively dismissed this new Browsergate report. She called it a fabrication and a house of cards.
Which is a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, her argument is that the creator of Teamfluence is simply trying to litigate in the court of public opinion after suffering a definitive loss in an actual court of law.
She is pointing a massive spotlight at a glaring conflict of interest. I mean, from LinkedIn's perspective, this is a retaliatory smear campaign.
It's revenge, basically.
Yeah, orchestrated by a developer who got caught breaking the rules, lost their business model, and is now trying to cause a public relations nightmare out of spite.
But wait, if the main accuser is a disgruntled company with a clear motive for revenge, doesn't that compromise the validity of the class action lawsuits currently happening in the U.S.?
You would think so, right?
Yeah, like if the origin of the report is fundamentally biased, shouldn't that just kill the case?
What's fascinating here is the legal doctrine. The law does not always require the messenger to be pure as long as the message contains verifiable, factual evidence of a separate violation.
Okay, so the evidence itself is what matters.
Right. Yes, Fairlinked and Teamfluence are heavily biased, and their motives are transparently vindictive. But in releasing this Browsergate report, they published highly detailed technical blueprints about LinkedIn's back-end scanning practices.
They showed their work.
Exactly. Independent privacy lawyers looked at those blueprints and realized that regardless of Fairlinked's motives for publishing them, the data collection practices themselves might violate entirely separate consumer privacy laws.
Wow.
The disgruntled scraper essentially handed over a map that independent plaintiffs are now using to navigate a completely different legal argument.
So we really have to separate the biased messenger from the technical message.
Precisely.
Okay, let's look at the actual evidence Fairlinked presented in this Browsergate report. Regardless of their desire for revenge, what exactly are they alleging LinkedIn is scanning for?
Well, according to the report, Fairlinked claims LinkedIn uses a hidden JavaScript program to silently scan users' browsers for a very specific list of extensions.
How many extensions?
6,222 of them.
That is a lot.
And that number is significant. If the goal is purely to block known scraping tools, a list of over 6,000 extensions implies a dragnet approach rather than a targeted security measure.
Like scooping up everything.
Right. Fairlinked breaks the implications of this master list down into a few distinct categories, starting with corporate intelligence.
Which, since LinkedIn is fundamentally a business-to-business networking platform, the corporate espionage angle is huge here.
It's massive.
Fairlinked alleges that LinkedIn isn't just looking for scrapers. They're actively scanning for competitor software. The report claims the system looks for extensions tied to major Microsoft competitors.
Companies like Salesforce, HubSpot, and Pipedrive.
Yeah. And because LinkedIn knows your real name, your exact employer, and your job title, Fairlinked argues they are utilizing these browser scans to secretly build enterprise-level corporate technology profiles on competing businesses.
The monetary value of that kind of intelligence to a company like Microsoft would be staggering.
I can't even imagine.
Knowing exactly which specific sales teams at which specific rival companies are utilizing which specific CRM tools gives them an unparalleled view into the broader software market.
But the allegations go far beyond just corporate market research, right?
Yeah.
They get into an area that is deeply personal.
That we really do.
And to be clear to everyone listening, we have to note that the lawsuits highlight some highly specific, politically and religiously charged extensions. We are obviously just looking at the data points as they appear in the court filings.
Right. We are strictly impartial here. We are not taking a stance on the tools themselves or endorsing any viewpoints, just reporting the claims.
Exactly, just listing what the source material says. But Fairlink claims that LinkedIn's list of 6,222 extensions includes tools like an Islamic content filter, an anti-Zionist political labeler, and tools specifically designed for neurodivergent users.
And this is where the legal jeopardy escalates dramatically.
So?
Fairlink's argument is that by actively logging the presence of these highly specific tools on a user's machine, LinkedIn is functionally processing data that reveals a person's religious beliefs, their political affiliations, and their health conditions.
But if LinkedIn's ultimate goal really is just security, why log those specific extensions at all? Like, why not just monitor for the behavior of scraping and block that?
That highlights the technical challenge of modern web security. Monitoring behavior in real time is a constant, resource-heavy cat-and-mouse game.
It's too slow.
Yeah, exactly. Identifying the specific tool via its static resources as soon as the page loads is computationally much faster.
Okay, that makes sense from an engineering standpoint.
But the consequence of that speed is a sweeping collection of data. And that leads to the next critical question. Once LinkedIn's systems log that you have a specific political or health-related extension installed, where does that data actually go?
Which brings us to the third angle of the BrowserGate report third-party transmission.
Right, where is it being sent?
Fairlinked claims this data isn't just staying isolated on LinkedIn's internal servers. They point to the presence of a hidden iframe on the site.
And for context, an iframe is basically a secret, invisible window embedded within the web page.
Yeah, a window that allows the page to talk directly to another external server without the user ever seeing it.
It's very common, but also very hidden.
Right. And Fairlinked alleges this hidden iframe connects to a U.S.-Israeli cybersecurity firm called Human Security, which specializes in detecting and blocking bots.
They also note LinkedIn utilizes Google's Recap TCHA service.
Exactly. So Fairlink's core allegation is that the scan data detailing these 6,000-plus extensions is actually being transmitted to these external security companies.
And LinkedIn firmly pushes back on the implications of this.
They deny it.
Well, in a detailed response posted on the technical forum Hacker News, their engineering team maintained that they absolutely do not use this scan data to infer sensitive personal information about their members.
Okay, so they collect it but don't profile with it.
Right. They reiterated that static resource data is utilized strictly to determine which extensions violate their terms, to improve their technical defenses against automated bots, and to understand why a specific account might be pulling excessive data and threatening site stability.
But this brings us to a major friction point in international privacy law, right?
It certainly does.
If I have a health-related accessibility extension installed to help me read web pages, does the mere logging of its underlying code imply LinkedIn is profiling my health?
That's the million-dollar question.
Or are they just cross-referencing my browser against a giant master list trying to find the bad actors, and my health extension just happens to be caught in the sweeping net?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, depending on the jurisdiction, the corporate intention behind the scan might not matter at all.
Really, the intent doesn't matter.
Not always. Under the European Union's GDPR, for example, processing any data that could reveal sensitive traits like health status, political leanings, or religious beliefs requires explicit, informed consent from the user prior to the collection.
Wow, so even if they mean well.
Exactly. Even if a company's ultimate provable intent is purely site security, the mere act of sweeping up that specific sensitive data without asking first is a massive legal violation.
The action itself is the crime.
The law focuses on the action taken and the lack of user consent, rather than the corporate justification for it.
And that exact concept, the definition of what constitutes informed user consent, is the absolute battleground for the two class action lawsuits currently playing out in California.
Led by plaintiffs Nicholas Farrell and Jeff Gannon.
Right. So what are they actually arguing in court?
Well, the plaintiffs in the U.S. District Court are relying on a complex web of legislation, primarily the California Comprehensive Computer Data Access and Fraud Act, alongside the Federal Electronic Communications Privacy Act.
That's a mouthful.
It is. They are arguing that LinkedIn's practices bypass the fundamental right to privacy established by the California Constitution.
So how does LinkedIn defend against that? Because they must have a defense regarding this issue of consent.
They do, and it points directly to their public terms of service and privacy policy.
The fine print.
Always the fine print. They claim they have fully covered their legal bases because the policy explicitly states the company uses cookies and similar technologies to collect information about each user's web browser, device, IP address, and operating system.
But does it mention extensions specifically?
Crucially, LinkedIn's policy makes specific references to the use of plugins and add-ons.
Add-ons.
Right. Their legal argument is that the term add-ons is an industry standard phrase widely used interchangeably with browser extensions, meaning users were properly informed and consented by using the site.
But J.R. Howell, the attorney representing plaintiff Jeff Gannon, argues that LinkedIn's public defense completely misses the foundational issue.
He does. He points out that the core problem isn't whether LinkedIn has the right to combat platform abuse.
Right, everyone agrees they can protect their site.
The issue is the reasonable user standard.
Right, because a reasonable user does not read a dense, legalistic privacy policy, see a vague reference to the word add-ons buried next to the word cookies, and just magically understand that they are legally consenting to the covert surveillance of their entire customized browser ecosystem.
Exactly.
Terms of service feel like a blank check these days. When the average person reads the word cookie, they assume the website is tracking what page they visited last, not utilizing a hidden script to catalog a neurodivergent reading tool they installed months ago.
This raises an important question, though. Howell's argument highlights the massive, potentially intentional gap between tech company jargon and everyday user comprehension.
There is a huge disconnect there.
A fundamental disconnect between how corporate engineers write these policies to secure maximum legal coverage and how human beings actually interpret them.
And the plaintiffs in these California cases are aggressively leveraging that disconnect, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They aren't just asking for a slap on the wrist. They are seeking significant monetary damages and a formal legal injunction to force LinkedIn to permanently alter its data collection and third-party disclosure practices.
It creates a phenomenal legal and ethical knot, honestly.
It's incredibly complicated.
On one side of the equation, you have the very real, very pressing need for massive platforms to defend themselves against aggressive, automated data scrapers.
Which we know exists.
We know unequivocally that those scrapers exist. Teamfluence built a business around one and ended up in a German court over it.
Right.
But on the other side, you have the severe collateral damage of that defense. To catch the bad actors, LinkedIn is allegedly running a silent dragnet over millions of everyday users, potentially cataloging the specific tools they use for their jobs, their political filters, and their accessibility aids, all without plain English, easily understood consent.
It is the ultimate modern security dilemma. I mean, how does a platform protect the integrity of the house without fundamentally violating the privacy of everyone who walks through the front doors? It's a tough balance.
And more importantly, who gets to decide where that line is ultimately drawn? Because as these technologies become more integrated, that line is only going to get blurrier.
It is definitely something that should change how you interact with the web. The next time you open up your browser to look for a new job or to connect with a colleague on a networking site, you have to remember that the website you are looking at is actively looking right back at the tools you're using to view it.
And that leads to a final lingering thought for you to mull over, one that takes this entire legal scenario one philosophical step further.
Let's hear it.
If a browser extension is fundamentally designed to modify any website you visit, and websites are now actively scanning your extensions to see exactly how you are modifying their code, who actually owns the digital experience happening on your screen right now?
Oh, wow, that's a wild thought. Is it you, the user, customizing your view? Is it the browser facilitating the connection? Is it the independent developer who coded your extension? Or does the website itself have the ultimate legally protected right to dictate exactly how its content is viewed and interacted with?
It makes you look at those little icons at the top right of your screen a whole lot differently. Keep an eye on them. We'll see you on the next deep dive.